All right. Good evening, everyone. So we'll be working on this project today. So we're talking about how to deploy a DevOps tooling web solution, which is like um, a step higher from what we did in my last video. And in this, which is more like a solution to the the DevOps training I'm working on. And what we're trying to do is just to deploy a three title web application using an NFT server as a shared server file um, storage where we have three web servers that can communicate with the NFT server, which will be actually be serving the application server. And this can be very useful in such a way, especially when you are deploying web solutions that have varying traffic and you want to ensure that instead of deploying a fixed storage or a fixed resources to handle that, you can kind of set up a situation where you can deploy the appropriate resources based on the given traffic at the given point. So this will serve as a foundation to a more comprehensive DevOps solution architecture. But we'll be focusing on how to set this up because in the coming video, we'll be talking about to integrate it with some of the DevOps tools like the Jenkins and the likes. So for this, we'll be implementing this. And because of that, I've created a comprehensive documentation for this project. Um, the architecture will look like this basically. We'll have a DB server with three Elastic Block Store and NFS server with three Elastic Block Store. The only difference is that this will be 10 gig each, this will be 15 gig each. And the reason why I'm doing this is because for the DB, we'll be creating an LV. We'll be creating two LV, one for the application, one for the log, and each one of the LV will be 14 gig each. For the NFS, we'll be creating three LV, right, which is logical volumes, and each one of them will also be 14. So for me to be able to achieve the same size, I kind of scale this to 15 gig. So by the time I create my volume group, which will be around 45, and I make each of the logical volume to be 14 14 each, I'll still have about 3 gig left, right? So and that's the reason why I'm going with this architectural flow. So up here we'll have our web servers which has no elastic block store. Then so the clients can communicate to any of these servers. So the application file itself will reside inside the ENF, the NFS server, and each of these web server can communicate with this to serve the clients. So to do that, we'll be creating five servers, one for the NFS, three for the web browsers, and one for the database. So let's go back to our AWS console, right, which is the dashboard for the EC2 instance or the EC2 dashboard. If you are not on this, you can easily just come here, type the EC2, and then click on the first option, which is this. But I'm already there. So what I'll do is to launch. So before that, I'll talk about security groups. So let me just quickly talk about the security groups. So I've set up three extra security group, one for the NFS server, one for the database, and one for the web browser. Basically, there's nothing really in there at the moment. It's just basic setup, just for the SSH. Same thing for this, just SSH. But for the web server, which the client will be communicating with, so we have set up both the SSH and the um, what they call it, the port 80, which is going to be used to serve the web application. So that's just basically what we have here. So there's not really any big deal with our setup for now. So let me go back to the instance. So let's create an instance. So the first instance we'll be creating is the DB server. So let's just call it DB server. So we are making use of this, the Red Hat, right, which is using the Red Hat 10.4. You can check it out. You can see Red Hat 10.4. Well, this is 10.4. I was hoping we'll be able to see the name here, but this is 10.4. We'll see that in later on in our video. So for the DB, we are maintaining the T2 micro. Then my key pair is the same thing. We are using existing security group, so we pick the DB. Then we are editing this, so we are selecting the appropriate subnet. So you can pick any of the three subnets, as you can see on the screen, but it's always advisable. So I can pick any of these, but I have to pay attention to the one I picked, because every other instance I will be creating for this project will have to be in the same subnet. So I can launch this. Let's wait for it. So I go back here. Let me launch another one. So I call this NFS server. Ensure that I'm picking the right OS, which is the Red Hat. Right. For this, I'm changing it to this small to ensure that the NFS server have enough CPU, right? So you're using one CPU which has 2 gig memory, which is fine, right? So based on that, same select existing security group. So I'm going to pick this, which I've set up initially. Then remember I said you should take note of the subnets. So I use this subnet, so I'm going to maintain that. Then I'm going to launch this. So let's wait for it. So go back here, create another one. So we are creating the web server, so I'll call it web servers. Just one is okay. I'll still pick my Red Hat to ensure. So because we'll be installing PHP on this, we need to select T2 small so that we won't run into the issue of our getting stuck while trying to install PHP. So I'll pick the appropriate security group I've set up for it. Then ensure that I pick the right subnet. Right. Now because there are 3, I can just change the number to 3 to launch them simultaneously. Now I can go back to my instance list to see all of the instances we have created so far. So I can just do this. So you can see I have all my instances, the DBs, the NFS, and the 3 web servers. So I have to name this so that I will know which one is which. So 3. Oh, sorry, 3. So we need to go back to the volumes. So I've created the necessary volumes, which is the 3 volumes for the DB, 3 volumes for the NFS. So let me just refresh this so that we can see the other volumes. So this first volumes, as you can see, is the one attached to the DB during creation. So I call it DB server root volume to show that this is the one attached to the instance directly by default. So this is, so let me just do, this is for the NFS. I'll do NFS server root volume, right? So for the, so this is web server 3 root volume. Let me just copy this to make it easier for me to create for others. So this is 2, so I can just do this, change this to 2, then I save. Then I can just do this, change this to 1 and save. Right, so I already have the entire layout, which is very similar to what we have here. I've not attached them here, just showing you, but just to show you how easy for us to create a volume, just click on this create volumes. Because the volumes are much, that's the reason why I created it before the video. So select the size of the volume, ensure the volume is in the same subnet that we created each of the instances. I like to give my volume some tags, and stuff like that. So just click on create, then that will be done. But we don't need to create. So let me start attaching this volume to the right instance. So for this, we'll attach it to the DB, which is this. So this is how to attach volumes. This is volume 2, so we are attaching volume 2. Cool. So let's attach volume 3. Attach volume 3. Okay, great. So let's do the same thing for the NFS. And volume 1, attach. Sure that you are attaching to the right instance. So it's done. Right instance. See. Okay, so this. I think that's all we needed to do. If you look at what I have here, it's similar to the setup we have here. So let's go back to our instances. So we'll be moving on how to configure our NFS. So we need to connect to the NFS server. So click on connect. So click on this. I go to my terminal. Clear this. So that's kind of strange. Right. So let me just clean this up. Yes. Should be able to connect. Right, so we are in. So let's go back to the instructions. So the first thing says we should check the volume visibility. So since we attach 3 volumes to it, we want to check if they are present and if the system can read those volumes. As you can see, let me increase my terminal so that you can see. So you can see we have the 3 volume here, 1515 gig, which is the first step. So those are good. So the next step said we need to update. This usually take like God knows when. So I'm going to pause for a while for the system to update. Then we'll come back when it's done. So welcome back. So, so the installation is complete, which is the update. So let's go back to our documentation. Then we want to install the logical volume manager and nano, which is a text editor. So let's copy this, let's paste. This should not take long. So while that is doing, so that is complete. So the next step we want to do is we want to create partition on the EB volume that we attached. Now, if you remember when we did list block, we discovered that we have 1, 2, 3. So we'll start by creating a partition on each one of them. So we'll do that by doing sudo g disk, then the name of the block, which is device vdb, which is the first one. So when we do this, next we do n to create. We accept all the defaults, right? So we do p to see the partition table. Then we do w to write the partition table to disk. So that has been done. We'll do the same thing for the next, which is for the next EV. Same, accept p w y, done. Then we'll do the same thing for the last one. Alright, and accept all the default values p and y, and that's it. So I clear this. So which is exactly what we have in our documentation. Right, so this is exactly what we have in our documentation, as you can see. So the same thing. So at the end of the day, you should have something like this. And if I go back and do my list block command, you can see I have exactly the same thing. Now the next step, so let's go back to documentation, right? Do the same thing. So the next thing is for us to, I think there's a bit of, right, okay. So the next thing for us is for us to create a physical volume using the partitions we have created. So we copy the command and we paste. We use the physical volumes to create a volume group using this command. We call the volume group web data, as you can see on the screen. Then we paste this also. Then we create 3 logical volumes, as you can see, 1, 2, 3. One is app, 2 is second is logs, and the last one is the OPT, which will be used later on by Jenkins. So funny thing, you can just copy this entire command, and paste. Batch will be able to run those commands sequentially, right? So you'll be able to run that command sequentially. So just do this. To see everything we have done, so you can just do, I think that is the VG display V, if I'm correct. Right, yes. So that will be able to show you everything. So you have a volume group, volume group have 3 areas based on what we have created. We have the logical volumes. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one based on what we have created. So let's move to the next step. Now that we have done this, the next step is for us to create a file system on each of the partition. So you can just copy, like we did before, just copy the entire 3 code. Bash should be able to run it sequentially. So I just paste 3 of them and run. Right, you'll be able to run everything sequentially. So click on this. And based on that, if we come, we have this. So based on that, I think at this time when you create your lists block, you have something like this that shows the partition, and this is the partition, right? And this is the volume group we have created on the partition, which is more like we have the physical group, the volume group, and the LV on it. So let's continue. Now we need to create a diary for each of those, like a mount points for each of those LV, and we are going to create it within the mount directory. So we are going to create the app, the log, and the OPT on the mount directory. So we are going to do this, which is going to create that. Now, if you do cd slash mnt and do list, you'll be able to see those three locations. So cd, let me go back to the home page. So that has been done. Now we need to install the NFS server, right, on this. So like we did before, we just need to copy this. Then when you copy this, all we needed to do is run this. It will run them sequentially. Right, so you can see I run them sequentially, right? So that has been done. I can cancel out of this. So I see my. So now we need to create a partition to the mount points, and interestingly, you can just copy this entire thing without needing to copy the code one by one, and you can just run them. Each of the command will be run sequentially. As you can see, everything has been run sequentially. If you want to be sure that this was done properly, right, what we can do is we can just do um, ls this, then do mount, sorry, x mount, right, and do this. You can see that um, each of the folder has a read, write, execute permission. As you can see, everything is on and is being owned by nobody and a nobody group, which is basically what this entire command is all about. So instead of you running the, copying and running it one by one, you can just copy the entire thing and run. Everything will work fine. Now, what we need to do is for us to confirm the CID block, and if you come down to my instance, which is the NFS, and we go to networking, as you can see on my screen, you are going to see this subnet ID. If I click on it, right, so what I'm trying to do is to get the subnet block, which is more like an IP address for the subnet. So what I'm looking for is basically this. So I can copy this, which is, if you look at my documentation, is basically the same thing that you have here. Now what I need to do is to open the export file. So I open the export file, I copy this, right, so paste. This will open the export file. Then I need to copy this entire code and paste it into my export file. I will explain the code in a minute. So let's save. Yes. Now, what the entire code is saying is this. based on what we copied. Um, the first one is saying that the NFS clients will be able to read and write to these locations. Then the sync is saying this option ensure that all changes to the exported directory are written to disk before the server responds to the client. It provides a data integrity but may also reduce performance. But at some point, we need to sacrifice performance to ensure that we have a data integrity. We want to ensure that when a user is requesting for a file and at the same time another user is making change to the file, before the new user can get the file, we ensure that the data update that is going on will be completed before the NFS server will be able to respond to the new data request. Then we have the known no underscore or squash. This option disable the squashing of user ID. Normally, NFS will map all remote user ID to nobody user to prevent authorization. So what they are saying in essence, that when somebody is trying to request for a file, by default, the NFS will try to check the ID of the user and compare it to the owner of the file. If it matches, then it's allowed the authorization to that file. If not, it disallowed it. But the fact that the user will be dynamic, right? So we kind of remove the restriction and allow anybody to be able to achieve this. But the way we have actually ensured to prevent unauthorized access is to map each of the servers that will be accessing the NFS at the security level in such a way that it's only instances or servers within the same subnet we have direct access to the NFS server. So at that point, where we know that if this particular instance is running, the kind of user that we want to access our NFS are the people we have configured on those servers. So at that point, this will not serve as a security issue. The same thing is no root squash, which means that when a root user is trying to access the file, we will still retain his root user permission. Then after that, we should be able to run this. This one is basically to update the export list, as you can see. So when you run this, it will update the export list. Then the V there is basically to show you the list of the exporting option that is being updated on the export list. So what we have done in essence is to export the various directory on the NFS. So we are moving to the next. Now we want to check the ports on which the NFS server is running on, although we know, but just to confirm that it's running on the right ports. So by doing so, we know that it's running on this port 2049, which is the port it's running on. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to adjust our security group by adding this following port, by opening this following port on the AWS console and make it accessible to the subnet. So we are going to come back to our security group. So before then, so let's go back to our documentation, right? So we need this, which is the subnets we are working on. So copy this. So let's close this. We don't need this again. So in this subnet, I'm going to open this subnets. I'm going to add about 4 of these. The first one will be the NFS server. I think it's somewhere around here, yes. Then I'm going to add this, which is the subnet block. Then the next one will be, yes, I think this is fine. Then I'm going to add 111, 111, the same. Then I'm going to add the UDP. I'm going to maintain 2049. Right, I'm going to put the same subnet block. Then I'm going to add the same UDP. Then I'm going to do the 111. Then the same thing. So what we are saying that the NFS server should give access to any instance within this subnet block. So I'm going to save this. So right, so that has been done. Right, that has been done, which similar to this. You can choose to name it the way I've done, but um, it's strictly not necessary. So at this point, we can exit out of our, let's exit out of our NFS server for now. Come back to that later. So let's go back into our DB database. Let me see that. So we go back to list of instances. So let's connect to our DB. Minutes. Just focus on only the running instance. So let's connect to our DB so that we'll be able to install the MySQL database. So let's should be able to enter this. Yes. So this is fine. So let's go back there. I think we are still going to update the, but let's check. It's basically the same thing we did earlier on, but for the sake of clarity, let's just check that the blocks are, yes, they are there, which is fine. It's basically this. So we're going to run almost the same thing. Update it first. So let's update. So this is going to take a long time. So let's just pause. I will come back later. So welcome back. So the installation is done. As you can see. So let's clear the screen. Let's go back to the documentation. So you can install this Nano and the Logical Volume Manager. Just paste. Oh, sorry. I think I copied the wrong one. Let me just copy this. So that is done. So what we did is to create partition. Create a partition on each of the volume. So let's do this. Let's do here. Let's set all the defaults. P to print out, W to save to disk. Wow. So I do the same thing for C. Do for the last one, which is D. Okay, I think that is done. Then the next is to create our physical. Next is to create. Well, I can confirm that. But the next is for us to create our physical volume. Use this. Let's create that. Then create the volume group. Now we are going to call this DB log because we are in DB, not DB server, which is different from what we created earlier on. going to create the two logical volume. The other one we create three, so we are creating two here. So it's done. Then can use this to check them if you want to, but I'll just move on to creating our file system. Here we are using the ext4. When we are creating on the NFS, we are using the XFS. The difference is that given the volume of data and the processes that the NFS will be running, it's more appropriate to use the XFX file system compared to the EXT. But given the fact that the DB is not really, sharing file, so this is appropriate for this. So I'll just copy this to create this, so which is done. So clear that. So what I did was just to copy this entire code. So we run that in sequential order. Then the next thing is that I want to create two folders. One is DB and one is recovery. The reason why we are doing this recovery because we want to back up our log, right, first before mounting. And the reason being that if you mount directly, the mount operation is going to empty the log folder. So first thing you want to do is to back it up first before we mount so that we can recover it um, after we finish the mounting process. So based on that, I'll first back up using this command. You can just copy it like this. So we'll back up the contents of the entire log. Then based on that, we can go ahead to mount. So we are going to mount two locations. So I'll just paste to mount. That has been done. Then just to confirm that the mounting operation actually empties out the log. So if you do list, let me just do ls var log, right? Nothing is there. Everything is gone. So what we can do is to have done the backup. So all we can do is to recover it from where we backed it up, which is the home recovery. So if I now do this now, you can see everything is back and intact, and yeah, permissions and ownership is preserved. So that has been done. So what we need to do is to get the block ID basically. So if you do this, you can get the block ID. Now if you look, you have to look closely into this. So you are looking for so this is the first one, the log, and this is the ID here. I might need to reduce this a bit so that we can see. So this is the ID we are looking for, this. Then the next one, which is this, second one, which is the DB logical volume. This is the ID. So what I can do is I can copy this entire thing and just keep it somewhere. Let me see if I have a notes. Okay, I think I have a notes. So let's see, based on my old. So I can just clear this and just put this here because I'm going to need that later. So where's the data? This is the other one. So I'll just copy this and keep it in my notes. So those are the two things we needed, the log and the DB, which is fine. Then if we go back to the next, is for us to update it. And the reason why we are doing this is that while we have mounted, if we restart the server will not remember the mount operation. So for us to ensure that it persists through reboot, we're going to edit the FS tab. So let me clear this. So this. Then I already have a code here. Just to copy this code, right? Come down here and paste. But we need to update the ID because the ID will be different. So for the DB, this is the ID without the, you have to be very careful that you copy the right ID without the codes. So I go back here. So let me update this. Right ID. So I paste. Let me copy the second one, which is this. So come to this part. So I delete the old. And this is not WordPress, just so the DB. DB plugs and DB data. So I can just save. Right, check that my what I've done is correct and there's no problem. Let me restart my demo. So you can just reload it. Then you can do sudo mount -a. If you don't get any output, it shows everything was perfect. So, what we needed to do is to be able to allow that the what do you call it? The remote server, which is the web server, can communicate with our DB. We need to adjust the security group for the DB. So I go to security group. Sorry about that. Feeling a bit ishy. So come to this, then edit this. Now I'm going to create. So I'm going to look for the MySQL. Now what I'm going to add is um, the same subnet block we used when we were creating this. So let me see if I can still pick that. Okay, I think it's here. Even though all of them are in the same subnet block, so I'll just give permission to any request coming from this subnet block. And the reason why this is important is if I've had to add each of the instances, which means that anytime we want to add new instances, I have to come back to the security group and add that instance IP, specific IP to the security group. But by adding the subnet block, which means if you have 20 instances running in the same subnet, they will have direct access to the database. So I'll just save this, which is where we are. Let me just go back. Okay, so we have done the mapping. I've updated the security group, which by adding this. Now, what we needed to do is we need to, I think we have done that already, so we don't need to do that again. You can just install the MySQL server, this. So while that is installing, let's go back to our documentation. So we need to start the MySQL server and enable it to ensure that it automatically starts during reboot. So I can just paste the two code here, which is going to run simultaneously. So let me just give it a bit of time. Okay, that has been done. You can check the status if you want, so you can do that by doing system ctl status my sqd, which you are going to see. So it's fine. Now we move to the next point, which is we need to create a root user. So we can do that by doing MySQL, which we log in into the MySQL console. Then just copy this SQL command to update the password of the root user. So I actually make use of password.1, which is my, for all the video I've created, just to make it simple. But in a real production environment, you have to select a very secure password. That has been done. So we need to effect the change by doing flush privileges. Then we can exit. Then we need to run the secure script to ensure our database is secure by copying this command. Right, so paste this here. Then type in the new password. Right, so it's asking you blah blah blah. I'll say yes. Then I pick two. For me, do you want to change your root password? No, I'm not. Then the other ones I'll just keep pressing yes to ensure that I think that's all done. Then I'm going to log in into the database using the new password. So my SQL user, which is root password. Then I can type in my password to confirm that this is working. So this is fine. That is fine. Then I need to create a database called tooling, which we'll be needing later. So I'll just create this. Then I need to create a user called web access, which will be the admin user. And interestingly, I'm making it to be able to communicate from any of the subnets instances. So that's why we have this. So I'm going to give it an admin privilege. Actually, you can actually copy the entire command and paste anyway, just like we did in the past. But let me just explain this. So this will give it the admin privilege over the tooling database, not over the entire MySQL, but only for the tooling database. So I'll flush the privileges, then we exit, and that is fine. And that's all for the database, right? So that's all for the database, right? So for us to know that everything is working, we are going to log into one of the clients, right? So in fact, I'm going to log in into the three clients just to ensure that. So let me exit here. So I'm going to open 3 terminal windows. New one, another new one. Then in the view, I'll kind of collapse. I have something like merge. I think I saw it somewhere. Bring to front. Okay, these are the 3. I think I saw something like merge. Okay, it's already merged, so there's no point in merging again. So I can just do this. So let me just increase this also. So let me just clear this. CD2, where I have my pair key. Let me do the same thing here. Let me just increase. Let me just increase this so that we can simultaneously log into the three web servers. So those are my, so let's go back. So this is the first web server. Connect. This is server 1. Copy this. I'll come into my terminal. Let me use this as, let me reduce it a bit. Grab this, so let me paste. Why that is trying to log in, yes. So I'm in this server 1. Let's go back to server 2. Go to server 2. That is loading. So let's go to server 2, connect, copy this. So let me move to this, paste this here, this server 2, it's connecting. To make it easier, I'm trying to connect with them simultaneously so that we can perform the entire operation simultaneously to speed up time instead of doing them one after the other. So just wait for these two, because we are going to install the MySQL Nano on this. Then we'll probably just install, then we're going to configure the NFS server and the likes and the likes. So let me check if I can have access to it. Okay, so I can do connect and just copy this. So this is server 3, paste. So, yes. So I think we have all our 3 servers now. Clear. Server 1, 2, 3. Now let's go back to the documentation. The first thing we want to do is update 3 servers. Like I said, this update usually takes a lot of time, so we're going to pause and come back. So let's pause and come back. So we'll come back. So I think that has been installed. So we need to install the MySQL clients on each one of them. So let's start with this. So let me just put Y for automatic yes. So that I can move to this. Do this. Okay, so that should be it. Now we'll need to access the remote database from each of these. But we need to confirm the IP, the private IP of the DB server. So let me quickly confirm that so that we can update that code. Come on, come on, come on, come on. All right. So this is the private IP, so which means I can edit this. this. So what we are saying, MySQL connect to this host using this username. I will provide a password. So I can just copy this so that I can use the same command for others. So it's in the same thing. If I come here, it's in, showing that our security group is working. So right, so that's good. So so let's continue. So right, so this is just to check that the remote connection is working, which is fine. So let's configure the NFS client on the web servers. So the first thing I want to do is to install the NFS clients. So I'm going to do that. So let's exit here. So let me paste this here so that can be installing. Let's exit and paste this here so I can install that. So let's exit. So let me do this. That is fine. So we move on. Then I want to install the Apache server, then the Git. The reason why we are installing Git is because we need Git to clone the application that will actually be installing or deploying on the server. So that's the reason why we need Git. So you can install Git in one of the servers basically, but let's just install it in all of the server because you only be deploying on one of the servers and moving the file to the NFS to take over. So that has been done. So I have the Apache installed. Then I can start the Apache and enable it for each one of them. So let's do that here. Let's do that here. Let's do that here. So you can see each one of them is fine. Then the next step is you can check the status, but I don't want to go through that. So what I can just do is to know that my Apache has been installed successfully is to go to the web browser of each of the web server. For now, our web servers are not is not yet connected to the NFS, so we just check them individually to see that everything is working fine. So I just copy the private IP, the public IP rather, and I'll go to the home page. Right, that is working fine. I check for the other ones. Check for the other ones. See, this also should work fine. Okay, let me just create a different because we'll be needing this to test again. So that's also working fine. So let's check for the last one to ensure that the web browser is working fine. Taking a bit of time, but let's just go back to our documentation. So at least we have confirmed for two. So next is to mount the NFS server points um, the web server. So while that is working, let me just quickly check the last one. Okay, this is also working fine, so we are good. So the next point is to mount the NFS. Um, so the first thing we need to check is check the private IP of the NFS. So NFS server. So let me just clear this up. Let me just clear this up. Let me paste, but we are not. So I will need to adjust the private IP to correspond with the current private IP of my NFS, which is based on this current implementation. The IP address you are seeing here is based on my previous implementation. So let me see. So this is the private IP. So copy that. So I come here. I will adjust. The only thing I'm changing here is the IP address. So update the IP address. So I can copy this to the three servers. So let me just mount here. Let me mount here also. Right, and let me mount here also. So that has been done. Then we need to update. So you can check that this is working correctly by confirming by checking the disk size. You can see it's mounted already. Check again. That is mounted already. I can check again. It's mounted already. So we have mapped the mount slash have from the NFS server to the var.www, which means that any file here will be automatically synced to the NF server, and any file on the NFU server will be synced to this, and client can access that file. So we need to update. Uh, we need to update our FS tab on each of them. So let me start from here. I can do this. Right. So just copy paste. But this time around, we need to adjust the IP. So like I did earlier on, I'll go and pick the IP address, private IP address, and update it. So let me just quickly do that. So that is correct. So I just copy this. Let me save. Yes. Then let's quickly do the same thing here. Go to sudo nano fs tab. Oh, sorry. No, that is wrong. Slash etc slash. So this is correct. So I paste. Then I save. Right. So I go to last one where sudo nano etc slash fs tab. Right. So, paste. And I save. That is fine. Then you can check that your mounting is correct by using reload this. So I can just copy this to save time. Paste here. Everything is fine. Reload and check my mount is fine. Reload and check my mount is fine also. So so we need to install PHP, and basically how to install is just to go to your Gremlin site. You can confirm that you are working on red hats, but I know I'm working on red hats, so there's no really need for this. But if you want to be sure that you are working on the same OS as I am, so I'll just go to the Remy's website, which is this. This is basically what I have here, but just to show you how to use the Remy website. So choose the operating system, which is Red Hat Enterprise. Then choose the PHP I want to install 8.3. Choose the type of installation, single installation. My architecture is the same thing if you have been following the video from the beginning. So there are three commands first. So but I'm starting with the second because I don't have a subscription on my distribution or my OS distribution. So there's no point. So I'll just do this. That should, oh, sorry, I need to do sudo first. Then I'll do y. I should do that. So do sudo paste, then do y. That should do the trick. Then same thing, sudo paste, then y. Then do the same thing here too. Copy this, go back here, just do sudo paste. The reason why I'm doing the y is because I don't want to press in yes, type in yes again. So I'll do sudo this y, let it go. Do sudo this y, let it go. That is gone. So the next thing is for you to, so if you read through it, blah blah blah, this is what you need. Switching to right, this is what you need. So sudo this, just switch. I'll show you why it's needed there, but you just switch sudo paste. So let me just confirm why it's actually needed. So just type the y, which is fine. So the next one is this, where we are installing the PHP. So just do sudo paste and put my y so that I won't need to come back again. Sudo paste, put my y, so I need to come back again. And sudo paste, put my y, which is fine. Then the last one, so which covers the PHP installation. If you want to add additional packages, so in my documentation I have additional packages. I just want to make sure that most of the packages in PHP based application we need has been installed. So I will do y to get those one installed. These are packages gotten from the WordPress installation. I just figured it should work for most of the PHP based applications. So you might exclude this if you want. I just feel it is safer to be, it's better to be safe than sorry. So that actually concluded the PHP. Then I have to start the PHP um, fast process manager, the CGI. So I can just copy paste and run the two command. Same thing here, which is fine. Then I need to restart my Apache server. I think it's having a bit of shakara there. So I noticed it when I was doing this. So what I will just do is, since what I will just do is just come here and reboot the entire OS, which will automatically restart the Apache anyway. So just to be on the safer side. So let's just wait. So just reboot the three instances. Just wait for it. So let's clear them up. So we are expecting that all the services will be restarted. That should do the trick. So the sad part is that I have to log in into each one of them again. So the first server, which is this, I think. So let's scroll to the beginning. That should solve that. Okay, we're almost getting to the end of this project and everything should make sense now. Let's confirm that we are in already. So let's just wait for it to load up. So basically we are done with this. So what I did from the REM is basically the same thing that I did do. I just wanted to show you in case once you install a different version of PHP, so you have that flexibility. It's not necessarily you install my own version of PHP. If you have a different version of PHP you prefer, you can always follow the instruction on Remy's repo to do that. So let me connect. Not sure if pasting is the major culprit for this, but at least we have a way around this. So this should do the trick. So let's go for the last one. So I am waiting for that. Right, so this is the last one. So I just connect. So let me try something else. Instead of paste, let me just use this. So still the same problem. Who knows why that is happening anyway? So I think we have this. I think now our restart the Apache should work right now. Well, I don't know why the Manual failed because the process is seated with an error, blah blah. So well, let me just do status to see if it's still working. It's quite interesting. So I'll leave that for now. Let me check this sudo. Okay. Oh crap. Something else I wanted to do. I wanted to check the status. Okay, but let me just paste. Status. failed. All right, that's promising. We'll do with that. So let's just complete the other setup. I'll come back to that. First thing we want to do is to check the Cell Linux status, which is the security features on Redux. So just to check, it's currently enabled. Right, which is fine. So the next thing we want to do is to allow Apache Array to run without issue. I think this is one of the reasons why it's not running, but let's see. Let's see after doing this, let's see if our Apache will have a bit of a sense. Our Apache was running fine before. So this is when you want to connect to Apache through an API. Why that is not necessary for this project, but well, you can't be too careful. I'll just enable that for now. Then want to enable the Apache to connect to NFS. Right, so we'll do that for all of them. I think for by now, our Apache should be able to restart. We're still having the same problem. Okay, let's just continue. So let me just confirm the status of this. I know I had this problem when I was running it initially. Okay, all these are fine. I just need to restart the. You can check the version of your PHP if you want to, but I'm not sure that is necessary. But notwithstanding, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this file. Right. For now, we don't have this HTML folder. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this in one of the. Let's just do this. Because the okay, so before we go there, let me just do sudo make diary var www html. So then I can paste this to create this file inside. So I want to show you something quite interesting about how the NFS works. So I can save this. Yes. Now we created this file in the web server 1, but if you go to the web server 2 and we do cd, let me introduce it. Let me just do this. Right. You can see it's here. If I check the third server, you can also find the same file that we created in the last one of them. So let me see if my good okay it's working. I think it's because of the missing HTML folder, but everything is working fine. Now if I go back to this and I do /info.php, right, you can see this. If I copy the same file, you can see that you'll be able to see in all. Okay, I have to restart the server there. Let me just see this. Okay, so let's go back to this. So let me just restart the Apache. Should be able to restart now. Right, so I think that fixes it. I think having the HTML file, so this is working fine, and this is working fine. So that shows that our NFS is working fine, our web server is working fine. So we'll need to remove that. So let us just I will just delete the entire folder because so let me just do cd, let me just do sudo remove ri this var www html. So not removing this entire folder. At this point, I don't think we have a need for 3 of them. So this is fine. So we need to copy, we need to get the application from GitHub. So I'll just do that in just one of the server. I don't need to replicate that in all of the server. So I'll just duplicate it here, which is fine. Then cd into the 2, as you can see, you see an HTML file. So what I want to do is copy it to copy the HTML. And I want to copy it to the var www dots, right? But before I do that, I have to put a recursive flag here to be able to copy the entire folder. So that is fine. So I go into the file itself. Sorry. Go into the file itself. HTML. Right, which is, you can see that I'm going to open the sudo nano function full file. Then I'm going to adjust my DB. So I've created an admin on this, and the admin is web access. Then the password we used for that was password 0.1. Then I need to update the DB host by bringing the DB private IP. Just wait for that. We're almost done. All right, almost done. I think it's because of the network. All right, so what we needed here is the IP. Then we can update that. Then we can update this. Then we can save. Control X. You notice that I'm doing this only on one of the web server. So I think I'm done. Then we were asked to create an admin user. So, but before then, I will need to import the database to the tooling database I created. So I have to go back into the tooling. Here you can see we have the database dump. So I just need to copy this. So I think I make a mistake. Well, it's wrong anyway, so there's no point. Let me cancel this. So let me paste this. Oh. I just keep making the same mistake. I think I copied the wrong code. Where is it? Okay, this is what I needed to copy. Sorry. So, but the IP of the host is different, so I have to confirm. I have to pick the right one. Then edit the hosts. Which is fine. Password. So that is fine. Now I can log in into the same database, which is fine. Then I can insert this. Let's copy this. Alright. Just insert this, and that is fine. So I can exit. Then we have updated this already, so there's no point. Then I can restart my browser. So you will notice that all these were done simply in one of the web browser, not the three of them. Now if I go to this and I do index.php, I should be able to see the login page. Voila. So if I do the same thing here, index.php, I should have the same response. Then if I do the same thing here, index.php, I should have the same response. Then I created a user based on the stats. If you look at that, you can log in here. So if you look at this, I created a user which is my user with this password, but the password itself is password. What we have just done is just to insert directly into the database the arch version. So, but the password, I think I'm going to update this document after this video. I'm not sure I pasted it here, but I'm going to update the document so that you know that the password is just password, right? So the same thing here. So let me just log out here, right? Let me log in here too. My user, then my password, everything in password, everything in lowercase. Should be able to log in from here also. You can see it's working. This is the second server. Then the last one is my user. Sorry about that. Voila. So everything is working as expected, and this brings us to the end of this project. So subscribe, like, so that click on the notification button so that if I upload more videos, you can always get to know first. Thank you very much for watching my